Ladies and gentlemen, my name is RuffledRowlit, and today we have an interview from Game Freak. Okay, so this website called Metro Entertainment got an interview with Game Freak where they're going to talk about hands-on, an interview where they say that Game Freak are saying that we try to implement new things fairly gradually. Quite interesting, yes, quite interesting indeed. Let's read the thing, okay? Let's get into it. So, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Pokemon Sword and Shield, hands-on, an interview. We try to implement new things fairly gradually. It's a pretty long interview, as you may notice. So, I will say, sit back, relax, grab yourself some of that alien juice, and let's get into the reading of this. Actually, it goes all the way down until here. So, yeah. Let's see what it says though. So Game Central speaks to the producer and director of the new Pokemon games about online options, arm-breaking swans, and shorts versus trousers. A new Pokemon game is always something to be excited about, and Sword and Shield is a genuine milestone for the series. It's the first time a mainline entry has ever appeared on a console that isn't portable only, which means that access to a graphical horsepower, to more graphical horsepower than the games have ever had before, and a chance to be played on a big screen. Each game is usually inspired by a particular country, and this time it is the turn of the UK, with the land of Galar featuring Big Ben-like clock towers and stadiums that look more like football grounds. Sword and Shield didn't feature much in the E3 Direct because they'd had their own dedicated one the week before. The games were playable at E3 and we were able to interview producer Junichi Masuda and director Shigeru Ohmori. The playable demo didn't reveal much though, as it was all set within a water-themed gym, so we didn't get to see any of the exterior graphics. We did get to try out the new Dynamax feature though, which allows any Pokemon to grow to giant size once per battle. For 3 rounds, it's a great visual effect, but because only a few different Pokemon were featured in the main demo, the options were limited as the veteran Pokemon fans can beat them all easily. Now, based on the Pokemon Direct though, the game does look encouraging with an open world portion of the game world called Wild Area, where you will be able to fully control the camera and can explore and even take party in 4-player co-op battles, although the game retains a more traditional fixed camera style when in or near towns. In our interview, more robust online options were promised, although when we spoke to the pair, the fur over the new games not allowing you to import all the Pokemon previous generations because not all the existing animal Pokemon have been recreated in the new graphical engine hadn't happened yet. But like most game franchises, Pokemon has always been criticized by its fans for what it's doing, while still being enjoyed for everything it does. Pokemon Sword and Shield will clearly have the usual share of controversies, but it's a major step forward for the franchise, and it will shape the future of the series for many years to come. I don't think it really makes a big difference, really, does it? Because it looks kind of like Sword and Shield in style, like better graphics for sure, not denying that. But if anything, it's just a continuation of Game Freak's complacency to not try out, like, you know, to actually put tons of features in the game, but rather just remove, like, it's the 1 step forward, 2 steps back mentality that they have. So I'm not really sure if it's really a step forward, but rather just a continuation of what they've been doing for several years now, which is, you know, they give us something we like and then remove it later on. Just classic Game Freak. But what can you do? Either way, my point here is not to be negative. My point is to read what they actually have to say here. So GC here, which are the I guess the people who made this question, you're potentially making a dream game of every Pokemon fan here. For years, people have been asking for an open world game with modern home console graphics. What was that something you were aware of when you were making the games? Both laugh. So Shigeru Ohmori. I'm definitely happy to finally be able to deliver on what I think fans have been waiting on, which, yeah, we have been waiting for an open world game, for sure. After Pokemon X and Y and Sun and Moon, we're now continuing the main series with a new generation of Pokemon, and we're able to do it on a console this time. So I'm very excited to be able to finally deliver that experience. Then the questionnaire asks, it must be difficult catering for both legacy fans and newer players. How much of your time is spent thinking about what the older fans will want versus worrying about accessibility, particularly for younger kids? They respond here. Shigeru Ohmori says, we always try to make the game for as broad of an audience as possible, and I think we're able to do that by having a lot of features that you encounter up front. We make sure that we can explain it all very thoroughly, introduce the world to the players and teach them even the basics. If they are still a new player, we will teach them how to throw a Pokeball, catch the Pokemon, all those basics, but make sure they got the gameplay, and then on more of the back end of things, having unique battle systems and a lot of depth on how you can train and raise your Pokemon really satisfies the fans that have been with us for the entire time. Well, people just want their breathing and stuff, stuff, so don't mess with that too much, you know, and we're Gucci. We just want to just try to make it as broad as possible, but also go for depth to a certain extent. So, the new game also seems to be divided into 2 sections, with the stuff around towns working like previous games with a relatively fixed camera, and then the wild area is more like an open world game. What was that was that a purposely created compromise? I think that it's that's fair to say. When we're trying to make big changes in the series, we want to do it with a bit more gradually. Every time we make a new game, we have to change up the formula and do new things, but if you do too much all at once, then it feels like it might not be like a... See, this is what I'm talking about. This is the thing, right? This is the thing. They always use these kind of like weird excuses for when they don't want to like add stuff into the games. Like, oh, you know, it's for this or that reason. You know, it's like, oh, we just want to gradually introduce new stuff. Yeah, or you just don't want to make too many things because it takes up too much time, and delaying the games will not be as profitable because then you can't sell the TCG and the anime and shit as well, and the merchandise, which I understand, you gotta make money, it's fully understandable. But either way, so we try to implement new things fairly gradually to try to satisfy some of the requests from the fans to try out new things, and if it goes well, we would incorporate that in the future. Well, you don't really do that, do you? That's the thing. This is a full-on, like, this is a blatant lie. Because, like, there are features that shouldn't be hard to make, like, let's say, the Battle Frontier feature, which I know some people don't care about Battle Frontier, but also know a lot of you guys do care about Battle Frontier. Why was that not in ORAS? That wasn't in ORAS, and that's still a complaint of mine about ORAS. I love ORAS, by the way. I genuinely love ORAS. I love the graphics in ORAS. I love the style of ORAS. I love the story that's just, like, you know, repetition of the original Ruby Sapphire story. I love the overall, like, just the overall game. I love it. But the fact that Battle Frontier wasn't there just made no sense. There was no reason for it not to be there, and then teasing it, like, you know, just teasing people and kind of, like, just, like, poking them with the statue of the Battle Frontier being like, oh, this is maybe gonna be happening in the future, who knows? It's like, really, I mean, you couldn't have just, you know, just come on, work with us here, you know? So I don't feel like this is really true, because that was a feature that people clearly loved and really enjoyed, and you didn't include that. And also, the same thing with Sword and Shield now. People enjoyed the feature of following Pokemon, but you don't have the following Pokemon. Like, you guys can't deny, like, the most of y'all did enjoy that, played, you know, Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee. I hated Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee for the most part, but I actually did love the following Pokemon, and that isn't included, so I don't understand, like, this doesn't really feel, and if it goes well, we should incorporate in the future. Well, yeah, why aren't we in, you know, why don't we have the ability to fly on our Pokemon like we did in Let's Go? Why don't we have following Pokemon like in Let's Go? You know, what happened with that? I mean, one feature you did pull over, which is nice, is the open world Pokemon. But even those you count as a new feature now for some reason. You call it, like, I don't know, you had like some new name for it or whatever, which is just kind of strange, because isn't that just the same feature you just had in, like, Let's Go? And that feature from Let's Go is just the feature from, like, Pokemon Go with the Pokemon the overworld. Like, it just, I don't know, I feel like there's something weird here with their mentality with these things, but who knows? Either way, I think you said the wild areas, let's see. So yeah, I think you could say the wild area is our answer to some of the requests for a more open area. We'll continue to do new things gradually as we progress with the series. Now, see, here's the thing, right? I think the reason people are pissed off about the wild area isn't about the wild area in itself, because I think all of us want an open world, right? A more open world, you know, to explore. But I feel like they're kind of more using the open world area as kind of an easy way to make the game, because then you just make an open field that doesn't need as much work. It's just an open field, right? Whereas, like, if you compare to other open world games, there's actually stuff in that, like, open field, you know, actual things there, you know, more trees, more bushes. And I feel like if you see this image right here, you see like there's like a cottage or a barn here, and there's like trees around it. I feel like if that was like kind of the open world area where you had more trees and just like, you know, a building here and there, like not a bunch of buildings or cities, just a little small like building here, a little small building there, you know what I mean? A few rock formations here, you know, just kind of like neatly, you know, next to each other and a little bit spread out as well, like just kind of like a combo of all those things. I think if you had a mixture of that, people wouldn't complain as much. And of course, with the tree textures looking like there's something out of N64, I guess, which is what people think, you know, that kind of makes people just feel a little bit like, you know, it doesn't feel like you really did much with this, even though you were given the opportunity, you know, you clearly are, you know, doing something that we do want, which is an open world area, and I'm actually loving it, by the way. I'm excited for the open world area, but it does feel like it's a little bit too plain in some places, which we only got to see in like the latest, like the Pokemon Direct, the latest one that came out. We got to see that, you know, that it like it's open and there are some beautiful areas. I still think personally that the desert looks fantastic. The deserty area where like you have the kind of dead trees and like you can kind of like there's a sandstorm coming past you, looks amazing. Also, not just that, but also when there's like raining and there's also an electrical storm, it looks freaking amazing as well. Like there's so many good things here, but there's also so much like, you know, like so much of the bad side of things that they won't improve upon in 5 months. People are giving like them far too much credit, thinking that they're gonna make the game like crazy good in 5 months. They will make improvements, that's for sure. They will definitely improve a lot of the textures and stuff, a lot of the, you know, some minor animation glitches, minor, like, glitches that are, you know, bugs and issues that are here and there, like, characters popping in too much, and, like, some models, like, not sticking to the ground, but, like, kind of floating above it. Like, there was a rock thing, like, a rock fence or whatever, that was, like, basically, like, the boulder was, like, floating in the sky, and also there was, like, this bug with the bikes, which I actually saw during the demo showcase, not for, like, the water type gym, but when Masuda and them guys were showing, like, the demo, you actually could see that the bike was, like, the bike's wheels were going into the ground, which is such a minor thing that you should not be, like, having an issue with, especially when the game doesn't, like, actually, you know, like, it's such an easy thing for them to, you know, clearly fix. I think that's the sort of stuff they should be able to fix, but, you know, being in the demo and we're 5 months away from release, just feels like there's still too many, like, things where they must have cut corners to quickly make the game, so it doesn't feel like 100% complete to me, which is just, you know, again, like, please don't think I'm just trying to attack the game here. Like, that's not my point. I feel like people just go ape shit that are trying to defend this game, and also people who hate the game just go ape shit as well. Please, for the love of God, just stop, okay? Just chill. All I'm trying to say is, they can definitely fix a lot of this, but there is no way they can fix majority of the stuff and change all the stuff when the game's actually released. I saw some guys saying that they're gonna change the double, like, oh, they're probably gonna change the double kick animation. No, they won't, because they haven't changed it for the last 6 years. They're gonna keep that double kick, you know, animation. This isn't even an animation, it's just like an effect that popped up. It's like a PNG that pops up and then flashes away of, like, a foot, you know, like a brown foot. That's all it is. They're going to keep that. That's not going to change. So don't expect changes to that stuff. Just expect changes to, like, minor bugs, texture issues, pop-in bugs, that sort of stuff. That's what's going to happen next 5 months, because they don't have time now, because now the games need to actually start being made, right? They got to start making the actual, you know, cases and all that, and that shit needs to be produced, and they all need to be put into their, like, you know, little cassettes or whatever, so they can go into the Switch. Sure, there'll be a day one patch, most likely, for, Sword and Shield. There'll probably be a day one patch on the Switch whenever you, like, turn it on. It's probably gonna be something like that, but I'm telling you right now, like, they don't have as much time as you think. 5 months is not a lot to get a, you know, ton of things like that fixed. It just isn't. Even if you have a big team, it just isn't enough time to get all that fixed. Especially when they don't even have a big team to begin with, and their B team is making this game. So it just doesn't feel like there's enough shit there, you know, they can really utilize. But either way, let's continue. So, GC here asks, this is obviously an important milestone for the franchise, but how radical a change were you willing to consider for Sword and Shield? I'm sure plenty of fans have suggested having everything open world, like a big Skyrim type world, or even things like having a real-time combat instead of turn-based, which is something Square Enix has obviously been thinking about with the Final Fantasy VII Remake. They're not necessarily good ideas, but they are possibilities that came up. We, of course, in the conceptual phase, we think of a lot more, possibly radical changes that we might want to try out, but a lot of them are just ideas at the time, and we end up not incorporating them. But we're inspired by the current gaming environment, games that modern players enjoy. A long time ago, for example, it was traditional to have a camera looking down at 2D gameplay with much more fixed movement. But now 3D games are the norm, and being able to freely move around the camera is something that people are used to, and we're able to incorporate that more. It really just comes back to what we think Pokemon fans are really looking forward to trying, and, for example, real-time combat. We've thought about that before, and we just keep coming back, at least for these games, to the turn-based system that is what the fans of Pokemon enjoy more. Which, fine. Actually, I think it's good to hear that they do think about stuff like the real-time combat. I would love the real-time combat, but I know majority of fans do not want that. They just want the same old Pokemon combat. Press fight, choose your move, and you know, they play the animations. That's what majority of people want. I would prefer a real-time combat, because I know how much more fun that could be, and how much more that could have to it. Not if it's like Pokken or anything, but like there's so many better ways they can do it. Like I played a fan game that does that really good, so I know the possibilities of real-time combat. But I know for a fact that majority of fans do not want that. Majority of fans do not want that. They just want to be able to press fight, use their move, and that's all they want, right? So I get that, you know, they probably won't do something like this, though I do appreciate that it might be even like thinking about it in their brains going through it, because honestly, I never thought they were going to go as far as to give us an open world area. Like, I asked for that so much, and I'm so happy we got that. Like, I'm still happy about that. I know people are bitching about Sword and Shield, but guess what? Even I am, but I'm still happy they gave us an open world area. I don't give a shit about the trees at this point. Fuck the trees. I don't give a crap about them. Sure, in principle, they should be better. They really should. They really should be better, but you know what? at least I got something that I've been asking for ages. An open world area for Pokemon, though I wish they could have done it a bit differently, like where you could kind of go to whatever gym you wanted first. It seems like we won't be able to do that. We'll still have to follow the game's like order, but at least I have an open free area where I can just run around, do whatever the hell I want, and not be locked down into like a specific route to follow. So that I appreciate, and I thank you, Game Freak, for finally making that jump, even though this should have been a thing that, you know, should have been like tested out in the past. And I mean, they kind of have, let's be fair. They did kind of test like more options and more paths in Sun and Moon, which a lot of people like did also forget about. They did try that stuff out, but it was also just the Sun and Moon games in general just weren't that great in my opinion, that I just didn't care for those like minor things that they did try there, which now I have to admit I wish I'd appreciated more, because now they make more sense and you can see them kind of trying that out here. But I feel also like, you know, just because you're doing this change of an open world, it actually should be easier for you to make the open world than to make an actual full-on city. Like, the city's actually taking more time for you because you gotta model brand new shit for it. With the open world area, you just gotta copy paste trees, bushes, and stones and stuff, and also water just needs to be plugged in. I have worked with game development when it comes to mapping. Mapping is the easiest and most fun thing you can do in game development. Mapping is the most fun, but also it's generally speaking the most easy thing because you have the most amount of stuff there for you already. If you have the asset developers already make you all the assets, the mapper just needs to make a good map. And it feels like most people are complaining because the map just doesn't feel good enough. It just feels like they took an open plain field and it doesn't feel like there's much there besides like, oh cool, just random Pokemon once in a while. Though we don't know yet because we haven't seen the full level of it. And I do like the fact though that it has an, you know, a weather system, day and night cycle, like tons of crazy shit happening there sometimes because you can see in the trailer. But of course there are bugs that need to be fixed, there are issues that need to be fixed, and if those don't get fixed, as a lot of you people are saying out there, like, oh, they still have 5 months, they're gonna fix all that. If they aren't fixed in the next 5 months, then you have no excuses when the game comes out, and I give it a lower rating, personally, because it has those issues, because I feel like those are sort of things that shouldn't be in a game that to begin with isn't as large as some of the other projects they've done in the past, which didn't have the same issues. So, I don't know, that's just my personal opinion on that, but let's continue. So, okay, but that implies you might try it out in a spin-off. We got a lot of ideas, but nothing to comment on right now. Laughs. Well, I would love if they try that off like, you know, a more real-time combat-based system in a spin-off game. That would be great. But just Game Freak's only like real spin-off recently has been like what, Pokemon Quest, and that game just has nothing to it anymore. Nobody plays it anymore because there's just nothing to it, you know? So I feel like, you know, if they do make something like a game with real-time combat, not like Pokken, but more like, if you guys know what Pokemon Generations is, it's a fan game, something like that would be really cool. So yeah, let's continue. So, why was it that Dynamaxing became one of the main gimmicks for the new games? Where did that come from? Is that something that had been considered for a long time? And they continue here saying that it was really inspired by the move to the Switch. High resolution and ability to play on the big screen TV. With the 3DS, we really didn't have the resolution to portray very small characters versus very big characters at the same time. So being able to visualize that kind of size difference of the Pokemon was something that the Switch enabled us to do. So we wanted to create these kinds of cool looking battles. I've been looking at the reactions online. Everyone seems to be very keen, except there is a concern that the new feature getting added to Pokemon each time and whether they'll be well received or not. They seem to disappear for the next iteration for no obvious reason. Is Dynamaxing something that's going to stick around forever? At Game Freak, it's really just come from our desire to surprise the players with new gameplay. Not to do the exact same thing every time, but have a twist on something that keeps people surprised and enjoying the style of gameplay. Now, here's the thing that's a problem with Dynamaxing, is that sure, it gives some stat increases, but nobody cares about those numbers unless you're doing competitive. We care about seeing cool shit sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, sure, underneath, Dynamaxing is probably going to be good for, like, competitive aspects, sure, but in terms of, like, just what looks the coolest and what's the most interesting to, you know, just see visually, which is what we loved about Megas, because they gave a clear stat boost, right? But they also made the Pokemon look way cooler. The problem with Dynamaxing is that it just makes the Pokemon larger. You just scale up the Pokemon and give it a red tint. You know what I mean? There isn't really anything special. That's why I'm hoping Gigantamaxing is actually real, and then we will get something more akin to, like, Mega Evolutions, but they're just, you know, larger and stuff. Not Megas, actually, but, like, you know, just Dynamaxing, but a different version of it, where the Pokemon actually, like, you know, just gets a different form and looks different, you know? So So Game Freak, it just really comes down to the desire to surprise players. Okay, we just read that. It's a feature, wait, if a feature has been removed, things like Versus Seeker, oh, the Versus Seeker, dude. Wow, that, we haven't seen that in a while, have we? Battle Frontier, and so on, there's still a chance they might come back in the future, even if it's not for this one. I think if, by bringing it back, it'll be a surprise in itself, or be a new take on the formula. I think you might see things like that happen. For example, in these games, the bike is back, which was gone for a while. In Sun and Moon, you could ride on the back of a certain Pokemon to get around, but we felt that with wild area being so large, we wanted to look at what would be the best way to let players go around, and very smoothly, without too much trouble. Or it was just easier to make it that way. Let's be fair, Game Freak. It was just easier to not make, you know, all the Pokemon rideable, instead just making a bike which you can ride on, which is far more easy because that's a singular model, and then just making those like puff things when it's on water, it's far easier than making all the Pokemon rideable, you know. That's the reality, but they're of course going to give more of a, you know, reason like this, because this just sounds, you know, PR-wise better. So we brought back the bike, and of course I do like the bike. I'm gonna be honest, I do like the bike. I'm all Gucci with it, and you know what? Hey, not being able to ride on Pokemon, it's sad, but that's just, I'm used to it with Game Freak at this point. I'm used to it, you know, them giving us cool shit and then taking it away. It's basically like, you know, you're given this cool freaking present, and you're like, oh, I love this, and then the person who gave it to you just comes and yoinks it and says like, yeah, sorry, you can't have this. This was only for this one singular moment, but now I gotta take this away, so here you have a ball. I mean, I like balls because I can play I can play football with them balls. I mean, it's a cool football, right? But you know, is this really it? I like that as well. Can I have both? No. Oh, okay. Well, I can just go kick around this ball. Oh, wait a minute, you can't have that ball either. Now you gotta take this thing. What? That's basically like how it feels like with Game Freaks. Like, they give you something and then they take it away. That's fine. So, seamlessly with water, we added new things to make it feel like it's a surprise again. GC, is the game based on the UK in general, or just England? I'm not clear. I think it's probably fair to say that it's inspired by the United Kingdom as a whole. Of course, it's not one-to-one laughs, and I've been to the UK before, and it left a deep impression on me. The feeling of the power of the nature, for example, and a lot of the old legends from the United Kingdom, and the stories that inspired us for these games. That's what I was going to ask. Is there any specific mythology or supernatural characters you've incorporated into the games? I don't know what we really got other than Nessie. Both laugh and the laugh again. One specific example is the legend of giants, like Brutus and those legends. Yeah, so some of that really ancient pictography on the hills. Alright, I know what you mean. The English and Welsh legends about the tales of giants, which, yeah, those are cool. Actually, that makes sense with the region. Yeah, it makes sense. So this is where the idea of Dynamaxing came from. Partially, yes, and also other elements in the game. So there's going to be other features like, I don't know, does it rain a lot? Is there going to be sudden obsession with tea? Both laugh. In the wild area in particular, there's a weather is quite dynamic, so yeah, it's going to be a dynamic weather system, quite dynamic. Is a diplomatic way to put it. Both laugh. I just hope there's a reference to cricket. You obviously got football in there, but also Mario sports games, and it's but all those Mario games, sports games, and it's never cricket. So just turning to the Pokemon designs, is there a different methodology to creating them with each game? I don't know whether that will be informed by the new setting or the new hardware. Every game and every single and even in a single game, there's a lot of different methods we use to design every different Pokemon. They come from a lot of different places, but one of the approaches we focused on this time around was not just having our digital artists come up with the new visual designs first, but then figuring out what to do with them. Instead, we had some of the game designers, if they aren't very artistically inclined, they would come up with the setting or an ID and then be paired with an artist, and then they would work on it like a team together to come up with a wide variety of new Pokemon. So that was kind of a new approach that we took this time around. Are there any specific examples you can give when these were created? For example, is Wooloo, the sheep Pokemon. And one of the reasons for that is that it's there are a lot of sheep in the UK. But aside from that, the designers came up with a lot of settings they wanted from the character, and then worked with the artists to come up with more IDs. There is a slightly silly example, but I think everyone in the UK was told by their mom never to go near a swan because it'll break their arm, which is something everyone in the UK believes is true, even though it's not. Everyone in the room from the UK nodding and mumbles of agreement. Everyone else, okay. Will you reference similar to that? Well, you have reference him with that. Actually, our art director on the game is called James Turner, and he's from the UK. Yeah, so I'm on the direct. We do check with him a lot. All the designers, we make sure to get kind of the UK check. I think it's faithful and authentic before we get the final okay. So I imagine he's worked in a lot of kind of elements into the game. I imagine a whole subplot now where the queen gets to eat the swan at the end. We're joking here, but it's more difficult with common animals that you've already had to use as inspiration 2 or 3 times before to come up with anything new. Is that why it seems like there's been a drift towards more humanoid-looking Pokemon in recent games? At Game Freak, we tried to bring all 4 RIDs to the table to come up with new original things. But as you said, using the same motif for a base animal and adding new traits to it to differentiate it, we never want to make a Pokemon that's extremely similar to another one so that it's hard to tell really the real difference. I have a tinfoil hat on my head, just realized. I'm not consciously making more bipedal or human-looking Pokemon, but there could be some kind of subconscious thing that's leading us in order to have more original characters in that direction. It's hard to say. Alright, oh man, my brain. What do you think about the response to the Detective Pikachu movie? Because I think whether it is sponsored the film design were warmly accepted by almost everyone. The idea of being realistic looking Pokemon is particularly new things, but maybe even mainline ones. It's really difficult making the movie visual style, getting it right. For example, Pikachu doesn't have eyebrows, so trying to make them look realistic with emotions and everything without making it look completely different to the original Pikachu that everyone knows was very difficult. But I think we did come to a pretty good balance that made it still feel like Pokemon, but also was more realistic. Well, I don't know, man. I feel like the Pokemon still just got that kind of cartoony style. Let's see, this image right here. I feel like this image right here looks beautiful. You know what I mean? The grass is very lusciously sticking up. The Pokemon are rolling, like, you know, chilling around here. But I wish they had, like, you know, like, I feel like these, you know, with them boys here, you know what I mean? Like, they could definitely be doing more, like, you know, like cubby things, you know what I mean? Because they're like, you know, little cubs and stuff. They could be like running around, playing with each other and stuff. But instead they're just kind of standing around in the same position. That's the sort of stuff I feel like would be really cool if they eventually implemented in future games, where the Pokemon actually have like cool, unique, like, you know, animations for when they're chilling around here, you know what I mean? That sort of stuff. Because you'll see that in other games, like, you know what I mean? Like even, you know, in other games where they have monsters and stuff in the wild, in the open world, they'll be just kind of like doing their own thing, walking around with like unique animations and stuff. And I think it would just be cool to see Pokemon achieve that at one point. Maybe not this game, but in the future it'd be nice if they did that. So let's continue. The idea of doing realistic looking Pokemon is not particularly new, but it's also something you will be thinking of incorporating in future games, maybe even mainline ones. Already they talked about this, didn't they? I was very pleased with the reaction of how people accepted it, especially I was worried about the reception in Japan, where realism maybe isn't as appreciated as it is in the West, but also worked out pretty well, and I think whether we actually go to that style on the games or not, that's something we think about in the future. But finding that right balance between fantasy and reality, where exactly that is for each game, I think that's something we'll have to find in the future. When I was talking about earlier about the idea of a perfect Pokemon game, I think most fans would imagine something that had more of a robust online feature, and again, that's something that's waxed and waned with the mainline games over time. Will we see that begin being expanded on? Could things like co-op for a whole game be in the title in the future ones? We always viewed Pokemon as a kind of communication tool. Even starting with the Game Boy, we had the link cables to connect to other players to battle and trade. We try to expand on it in different ways every game, but I think online is definitely one of the focuses that we put for these games. For example, the wild area, where when you're connected to the internet, you can actually match up with other players from around the world, and they'll start appearing in the world. When you see them, you can kind of invite them to trade or battle, or even engage in new max raid battles, which is kind of the first time we've done this cooperative battle gameplay, where you can team up with 3 other players and take on big bosses. I think you'll find I think there's definitely more of a focus on online this time, and we'll continue to try to expand on more communication in the future. And that's fantastic, by the way. I love that they actually did this, where you can actually meet other players in the world. And imagine in the future if we can have like servers, you know what I mean, Pokemon, with like 100 people at the same time, walking around like an open area or in cities, just meeting up with each other, you know what I mean? I feel like that would be fantastic, because I've seen fan games achieve that, you know? I've seen fan games achieve that level of like MMO style, and I feel like Pokemon could definitely reach that at some point. And I think these max raid battles, and if you eventually make it like, instead of, you know, having like max raid battles, but we have raids, we have to take on legendaries and stuff, and like weird caves and dungeons and stuff, that would be so freaking cool. So ladies and gentlemen, for those who made it this far into the video, it's about 30 minutes in, I'm going to re-render this video, by the way, but for those who made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you understand that I'm still excited about Sword and Shield. I still am, okay? I'm still going to play these games, I'm still excited to try them out, to give them a try, to see what they have to offer. I'm still excited for that. I know some people aren't, I know some people are pretty much done and they've written off Pokemon, I know some people don't want Sword and Shield, and I understand exactly why they don't want to. They don't want them, because these games are not doing what they should be doing with the level of resources the Game Freak does have underneath their belt, it feels like they aren't pushing this to the extreme and to, you know, to the highest level that they can do. It feels like they don't want to, just so they can get the game out quicker, so they can have a new release every single year. That's what it feels like. So I hope those people out there who are still buying Sword and Shield, I hope you understand why other people are angry. And I feel like, you know, we shouldn't be attacking each other. If somebody's buying the game, just like, don't be disrespectful when telling others that you're buying the game, because I feel like I've seen that a lot as well. But also people who said they won't buy the game have also been kind of disrespectful. So if we just kind of like have a neutral understanding and mutual understanding of each other, which is, hey, I don't want to buy the game for particular reasons, and then somebody out here like, I do want to buy the game for this particular reason, and hey, we understand each other. You don't want to get it, I understand it, and I do hope that they will improve, you know what I mean? And then for the other side, yeah, I won't be buying it, but I hope you do enjoy it, and hopefully they will improve upon it. So please understand, I'm not here to hate on Pokemon. I love Pokemon. I just want to read this article because it was sent to me by a viewer who wanted me to look through it. I was gonna do it last night during stream, but it was like 20 to 4 in the morning or some shit. Like, it was 3:30 in the morning, so I didn't have time to read through all the things, but I did a video instead here for you guys, so hope you did enjoy it. If you did, drop a like down below. I'll catch you on the next one. Have yourselves a great day, and bye-bye, ladies and gentlemen.